The first time Alex Rivera laid eyes on the Lamborghini Huracan, he knew it wasn't just a car. It was destiny wrapped in carbon fiber and Italian engineering. What he couldn't have known was that this same vehicle would eventually become the centerpiece of suburban warfare in the manicured streets of Oakwood Estates. Alex had spent 15 years climbing from junior software developer to CTO of his own successful cybersecurity firm. At 42, he finally felt he'd earned the right to indulge in the dream car he'd plastered on his bedroom wall as a teenager. The limited edition Huracan in Verde Mantes, a green so vibrant it practically hummed with energy, had come up at an exclusive dealer auction. The price made his financial advisor wince, but Alex's mind was already made up. It's not just a purchase, he told his skeptical sister Mia over coffee. It's a milestone marker. Remember when Dad said we'd never amount to anything? Mia rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. And now you're buying a car that costs more than his house. Subtle. What Alex hadn't factored into his purchase decision was the reaction of Oakwood Estates' notoriously strict homeowners association, specifically its most vigilant enforcer, Patricia Winters. Patricia had ruled the HOA with meticulous tyranny for the past 8 years. A former real estate agent whose career had collapsed during the recession, she channeled her frustrations into policing her neighbors' fence heights, mailbox colors, and lawn ornaments with religious fervor. Her silver Mercedes-Benz had once been her pride and joy, the last vestige of her former success, until financial troubles had forced its repossession the previous year. Alex had been vaguely aware of Patricia, mainly through neighborhood email chains where she issued stern reminders about trash placement and holiday decoration regulations. They'd never directly clashed, largely because Alex traveled frequently and maintained his property to exacting standards. He'd survived 3 years in Oakwood without incident. That changed this Saturday morning after he brought home the Lamborghini. Alex was in his home office on a video call with international clients when the doorbell rang with such persistence that he had to excuse himself. On his front porch stood 2 police officers looking simultaneously apologetic and alert. "Mr. Rivera, we received a report about a suspicious vehicle in your driveway that may be involved in drug trafficking activities," the taller officer explained, his eyes darting toward the dazzling green car parked in the circular drive. Before Alex could process this absurdity, he spotted her, Patricia Winters, standing near her white Hyundai Sonata across the street, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with undisguised satisfaction. "That's my car," Alex said slowly, realization dawning. "I just purchased it yesterday." The younger officer was already circling the Lamborghini with poorly concealed admiration. "Beautiful machine. Mind if I ask where you bought it?" "Prestigious Motors in the city. I can show you all the paperwork." As Alex retrieved the documents, he noticed Patricia edging closer, clearly straining to hear the conversation. The officers reviewed his purchase agreement, vehicle registration, and dealer certification with professional thoroughness. "Everything appears to be in order, sir," the senior officer finally concluded. "Sorry for the disturbance. We have to follow up on all reports." "May I ask who made the report?" Alex already knew the answer but wanted confirmation. The officers exchanged glances. "We can't disclose that information, but the caller was concerned about unusual activity and an unfamiliar luxury vehicle." As they prepared to leave, the younger officer hesitated. "That's the Verde Mantis, right? Limited production run?" "Yes," Alex nodded. "Only 50 with this particular trim package." "Stunning. My brother-in-law works at the dealership in the city. Wasn't this exact one at their auction last month? I think he mentioned something about a repo from around here." And suddenly, everything clicked into place in Alex's mind. As the police cruiser pulled away, Patricia stood rooted near the edge of his property, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. Their eyes met across the driveway. Alex smiled. This was just the beginning. The Oakwood Estates community newsletter went out every Sunday evening, but this week's edition circulated through the neighborhood with unprecedented speed. By Monday morning, Alex couldn't check his mailbox without a neighbor casually strolling by to strike up conversation, something that had rarely happened in his 3 years of residence. "Heard you've had some excitement this weekend," said Martin Zhang, a retired professor from 2 doors down who normally only acknowledged Alex with a distant nod. "Nice car, by the way. My grandson has a poster of one on his wall." Alex leaned against his mailbox. "Thanks. Seems it's caused quite a stir." What the newsletter didn't mention, what no one yet knew except Alex, who had spent Sunday doing extensive research, was the full history of his Verde Mantis Lamborghini. 3 phone calls to his car dealer friend and a substantial finder's fee had secured him comprehensive documentation of the vehicle's provenance. The Huracan had indeed been custom-ordered 18 months earlier by Patricia's husband, Gregory Winters, a financial advisor who had apparently been playing fast and loose with client funds. The car had been registered in Patricia's name as part of what investigators later determined was an attempt to shield assets, When Gregory's scheme collapsed and he fled to a non-extradition country, Patricia had claimed ignorance of his activities, avoiding charges but not the financial fallout. The Lamborghini had been one of the first assets seized. "I'm not a vindictive person," Alex told his sister Mia over the phone that evening. "But calling the police on me, that crosses a line." "So what are you going to do?" Mia asked. "Nothing," Alex replied. "At least nothing yet." The following morning, Alex drove the Lamborghini to work instead of his usual Tesla, something he hadn't planned on doing regularly given the car's impracticality for daily commuting. He made a point of starting it at precisely 7:45 a.m., when Patricia typically walked her Yorkshire Terrier past his driveway. The engine's growl echoed magnificently through the quiet morning streets as he pulled out, catching Patricia mid-stride. The look on her face was worth every penny of the car's exorbitant price tag. But Alex's restraint didn't last long. That evening, he returned home to find a violation notice taped to his front door. ATENTION, non-conforming vehicle in violation of HOA Covenant 7.3 regarding vehicles of ostentatious or unusual coloration that may diminish neighborhood aesthetic harmony. The letter was signed by Patricia Winters, HOA Compliance Committee Chair. Alex photographed the notice and carefully removed it from his door. Inside, he poured himself a glass of Macallan 18 and pulled up the Oakwood Estates HOA regulations on his laptop. After 30 minutes of meticulous reading, he confirmed what he already suspected. Covenant 7.3 didn't exist. Two could play this game. The next day, Alex submitted a formal request to the HOA board for a hearing to appeal the violation notice, citing the non-existent covenant. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday evening. In the meantime, he parked the Lamborghini prominently in his driveway, washing it every evening after work with meditative care. The HOA meeting room was unusually crowded when Alex arrived. The first 30 minutes were consumed by routine business, but the tension in the room was palpable as everyone waited for the main event. When Alex's appeal was finally called, he approached the front with calm confidence, carrying a sleek leather portfolio. "Mr. Rivera," Patricia began, seated center at the board table, "you're appealing a violation of Covenant 7.3 regarding vehicle coloration. The board has reviewed—" "Point of order," Alex interrupted smoothly. "I'd like to request that Mrs. Winters recuse herself from this matter due to a clear conflict of interest." The room fell silent. Patricia's face flushed. What conflict of interest? Alex opened his portfolio and placed a document on the table. "This is the original title and registration for the vehicle in question. A 2023 Lamborghini Huracan in Verde Mantis Green. You'll note the registered owner as of January 2024 was Patricia Winters, until it was repossessed in March 2024. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Patricia's knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of the table. "This is irrelevant," she hissed. "The violation stands regardless of who owned the car previously." Alex smiled pleasantly and placed another document on the table. "This is the complete." The morning after the HOA meeting, Alex awoke to the sound of rain pelting his bedroom window. Perfect, he thought. The weather matched his mood, dark, but cleansing. His phone buzzed with texts from neighbors who had witnessed last night's showdown, ranging from congratulatory to concerned. One message from Harold, the HOA president, stood out. "Board emergency session called for 7 p.m. Your presence requested but not required." Alex smiled. The wheels of justice were turning faster than he'd anticipated. As he sipped his morning coffee, watching raindrops race down the kitchen window, he contemplated his next move. His initial anger had evolved into something more complex, a determination to see this through, but also a growing awareness of the collateral damage. Patricia's humiliation had been public and complete, yet Alex felt oddly unfulfilled. His doorbell rang at precisely 10:17 a.m. Opening it revealed a drenched Patricia Winters, without her usual makeup or carefully styled hair. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the rain and recent events. "May I come in?" she asked, voice barely audible above the downpour. Alex hesitated, then stepped aside. Patricia entered, leaving a small puddle on his entryway tile. For a long moment, neither spoke. "I came to apologize," she finally said, eyes fixed on the floor, "and to explain that there's really no excuse." Alex gestured toward his living room. "Would you like some coffee? You look like you could use it." 10 minutes later, they sat across from each other, steaming mugs between them. Patricia's hands trembled slightly as she recounted the past 18 months, her husband's betrayal, the FBI at her door at dawn, assets frozen, reputation destroyed. The Verde Mantis Lamborghini had been Gregory's final extravagant purchase before disappearing, a car he'd registered in her name without her knowledge. "When I saw it in your driveway, something just snapped," she admitted. "It was like seeing a ghost. That car represented everything I lost." Alex listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said simply, That explains your reaction, but it doesn't justify calling the police or filing false violations. I know, Patricia whispered. The board has already asked for my resignation this morning, effective immediately. A complicated emotion settled in Alex's chest. Not quite satisfaction, not quite pity. What will you do now? Patricia's laugh was hollow. Downsize, finally. The house is too big for one person anyway. I've been hanging onto it out of pride, but the HOA fees alone. She trailed off and straightened her shoulders. I'm not asking for sympathy. I just wanted you to know it wasn't personal. Not really. As she rose to leave, Alex found himself speaking words he hadn't planned. The developer I work with is looking for an experienced real estate consultant for their new project downtown. If you're interested, I could put in a word. Patricia stared at him, clearly trying to detect mockery or malice in his offer. Finding none, she nodded once, sharply. I'd appreciate that. After she left, Alex stood in his doorway watching the rain. Then he grabbed his keys and headed for the garage. The Lamborghini's engine roared to life, its Verde Mantis paint glowing defiantly against the gray day. 3 weeks later, the for sale sign appeared in front of Patricia's Colonial. Alex watched from his driveway as potential buyers came and went. The Oakwood Estates HOA was now under interim leadership, with elections scheduled for the following month. Several neighbors had approached Alex about running for president, but he had politely declined. On moving day, Alex was washing the Lamborghini when Patricia's SUV pulled into her driveway, followed by a moving truck. He nodded in greeting, and she walked over, looking different in jeans and a casual shirt, younger somehow. I start the new job next Monday, she said without preamble. Your developer friend is tough but fair. She's the best in the business, Alex replied. She doesn't tolerate excuses, but she rewards results. Patricia's eyes drifted to the gleaming green car. You know, I never even sat in it. Gregory ordered it, but it was delivered after he was gone. Alex considered for a moment, then held out the keys. Want to take it for a spin? One-time offer before you go. 6 months passed, and the Oakwood Estates HOA elections had come and gone with a surprising outcome. Despite his repeated declinations, Alex had been elected president through write-in votes. He had reluctantly accepted the position after Harold personally delivered a bottle of 30-year scotch along with the news. Just until the end of the year, Alex had stipulated, then you'll need to find someone who actually wants the job. Autumn had swept through the neighborhood, painting the manicured landscapes in amber and gold. Alex had settled into a routine of monthly meetings and occasional property approvals, bringing a refreshing pragmatism to HOA governance that residents found unexpectedly liberating. The Verde Mantis now shared garage space with a more practical daily driver, emerging mainly for weekend excursions. The story of its connection to Patricia had faded into neighborhood lore, occasionally resurfacing when new residents moved in and were brought up to speed on local gossip. One crisp October morning, Alex was reviewing quarterly financials at his kitchen table when his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Alex Rivera, he answered absently, still focused on the spreadsheet before him. Mr. Rivera, this is Special Agent Keller with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. The voice was brisk, professional. I understand you purchased a 2023 Lamborghini Huracan last year. Alex's attention snapped fully to the call. That's correct. And you're aware of the vehicle's prior ownership? Yes, it was registered to Patricia Winters before repossession. We'd like to speak with you about that vehicle and its acquisition history. Nothing to be concerned about, you're not under investigation. But we've developed new information about Gregory Winters' activities, and the car may be material to our case. An hour later, Alex found himself in a downtown federal building, the Verde Mantis documentation spread across a conference table. Across from him sat Agent Keller and her colleague, Agent Moss, both with the keen, measured demeanor of people who specialized in following money trails. As you know, the vehicle was seized as part of asset recovery following Gregory Winters' financial crimes, Keller explained. What you may not know is that we've been building a much larger case. Mr. Winters wasn't acting alone. You think Patricia was involved after all? Alex asked, surprised. Agent Moss shook his head. No, her ignorance appears genuine. We're looking at Gregory's business associates. The car was purchased through a specific dealer with ties to a larger money laundering operation. They explained that Gregory had been located in Singapore and was negotiating terms of surrender in exchange for testimony against his former partners. The Lamborghini, particularly its unique configuration and paper trail, provided corroborating evidence for part of his story. We don't need to impound the vehicle, Keller assured him. We just need detailed documentation and possibly your testimony about how you acquired it. As Alex left the federal building, his phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Heard the feds finally caught up with you about the car. Sorry about that. P. Alex stared at the message, then quickly replied, How did you know? 3 dots appeared then. Gregory reached out to my lawyer. He's coming back to face charges. Thought you should know your car might be evidence. Alex stood on the sidewalk, pedestrians flowing around him, contemplating this development. After a moment, he typed, "Thanks for the heads up. How's the new job?" "Challenging, rewarding. No one here cares what color my neighbor's car it is." Alex smiled and pocketed his phone. As he walked to the parking garage, he wondered about the complex web of consequences that had sprung from a single car purchase. His simple revenge fantasy had evolved into something far more intricate than he could have imagined. 2 weeks later, the story broke in the financial press. Tech mogul's Ponzi scheme crumbles. Luxury car dealer implicated in international money laundering. Gregory Winters was mentioned only as a cooperating witness in the case against much bigger fish. Alex fielded curious calls from neighbors who had connected the dots between his Lamborghini and the news. He deflected most questions, sharing only that he had spoken with investigators and that his purchase had been entirely legitimate if unwittingly connected to a larger scheme. The next HOA meeting had record attendance, with residents less interested in property violations than in hearing any gossip about their community's tangential connection to a high-profile financial crimes case. Alex kept the meeting focused on neighborhood business, refusing to indulge the curiosity. As winter approached, Alex received a formal letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office requesting his testimony in the upcoming trial. Attached, the federal courthouse stood imposing against the spring sky, its neoclassical columns a reminder of the weight of justice. Alex adjusted his tie as he climbed the steps, joining the stream of attorneys, defendants, and witnesses flowing through security. "Mr. Rivera?" A young assistant from the prosecutor's office greeted him in the marble lobby. "They're ready for you in preparation room 3. For the next hour, the assistant district attorney rehearsed Alex's testimony, a straightforward account of how he had acquired the Verde Mantis Lamborghini, what documentation he had received, and his interactions with the dealership. His role was minor but necessary in establishing the chain of evidence connecting Gregory Winters to the larger financial scheme. "Will Patricia Winters be testifying?" Alex asked as they concluded. The ADA consulted her notes. Yes, she's scheduled for tomorrow. Her ex-husband testified last week as part of his plea agreement. Alex nodded, unsurprised. The strange connection between them continued, threads in the same tapestry, though they hadn't spoken since her text message months earlier. His testimony lasted less than 30 minutes, most of which involved authenticating documents and confirming dates. As he left the witness stand, Alex scanned the courtroom and was startled to see Patricia seated in the back row. Their eyes met briefly before he exited through the heavy oak doors. Outside on the courthouse steps, Alex paused, unsure whether to wait or leave. The decision was made for him when Patricia emerged 5 minutes later. "I thought I'd come see how they're using the car in their case," she said by way of greeting. "Didn't expect to see you today." "They moved up my testimony," Alex explained. "You're tomorrow?" She nodded, looking more composed than he remembered, dressed in a conservative navy suit, her hair styled simply. Gregory made contact again through his lawyer. "He's suggesting we talk before I testify." "Are you going to?" Patricia's laugh held no humor. After 18 months of silence, "No, my lawyer says there's nothing to gain." They descended the steps together, an unlikely pair united by circumstance rather than choice. "How about coffee?" Alex suggested impulsively. "I'd be interested to hear your perspective on all this." Took a surprise, she agreed. Seated in a cafe across from the courthouse, they formed an island of calm amid the lunchtime rush. Patricia stirred her latte absently as she explained how the case had expanded far beyond what she had initially understood. Gregory was just a middleman, it turns out. The real money was flowing through the luxury car dealership network. High-end purchases that could move large sums across borders with minimal scrutiny. The Verde Mantis was one of dozens they used to launder funds. "And you really had no idea?" Alex asked, then immediately regretted the question. But Patricia didn't take offense. "I should have known something wasn't right. The lifestyle, the sudden windfalls. I chose not to look too closely." She met his eyes directly. "That's on me, and I've had to live with it." Their conversation shifted unexpectedly from the case to their current lives. Patricia had flourished in her new position, her real estate expertise valued in a context free from her past. Alex shared the ironies of his reluctant HOA presidency and his plans to step down at year's end. "You've changed things there," Patricia observed. "My friend Diane still lives in Oakwood. Said you've made the HOA almost reasonable." "Low bar," Alex smiled. "I mostly just stopped enforcing rules that don't matter." As they prepared to leave, Patricia asked the question Alex had been expecting. "What will you do with the car after all this is over?" "Sell it," he replied without hesitation. "It served its purpose in my life." Patricia nodded thoughtfully. "Funny how things work out. That car, the one thing I thought represented everything I lost, ended up being the thing that forced me to start over." Sometimes we need to lose the thing we think defines us to find out who we really are, Alex said. 3 weeks later, the trial concluded with convictions on all major counts. Gregory Winters received a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation, while his business associates faced decades in federal prison. The financial press covered the story extensively, with one business magazine featuring a photo of the Verde Mantis Lamborghini under the headline, "The Car That Cracked the Case." Alex listed the Lamborghini with a specialty broker the following week. Given its unique history and the publicity from the trial, the broker suggested it might fetch even more than Alex had paid. "There's always a market for cars with a story," he explained.